There are a lot of different ideas, thoughts, and philosophies on cattle handling and stockmanship. And we're going to talk about horsemanship, four-wheelers, and footwork to try to get the proper pressure applied at the right time. So the very basics of cattle handling are understanding flight zones and balance point. When we talk about flight zone, that's the distance that causes an animal to flee. But what we want to do is create a movement at the right angle with the right amount of intensity to get that animal to move off smoothly. The balance point is where you place yourself on the side of the animal to get them to move forward or slow down or stop or turn away. So when we're talking about what to use to get into those zones, a four-wheeler, a horse, or a foot, there are different ideas, different thoughts that should apply. On foot is probably the easiest and the best, but not always the most appropriate for the situation. When we talk about a four-wheeler, it has real easy capability to go forward, fast, slow, or medium, and stop and back up, but you can't take it sideways. Some horses are real good to go fast forward and you can't stop them or whatever. So however well your horse is trained, you can get that to whatever level you'd like to take it. The more experience you have as a stockman, you learn to read the animals and immediately change to what they will work best at. They will tell you by their reaction to you how to change to fit what they need. Then you can increase your angles, sharpen your angles, slow your speed down, or speed it up. Once we get cattle trusting us, it's real important not to make loud noises, fast moves, or whatever to disrupt or to break that trust. I'm a horseback guy, so naturally I'm going to think the horse is the best way to go about things because that's what I know, that's what I grew up with, and that's what I understand. To me, the same philosophies of getting a horse good to ride and good to work with are the exact same philosophies that it takes to be a good stockman with handling cattle. We covered pressure, balance point, flight zone, outside, gathering animals, getting them ready to come to the corral. We talked about using four-wheelers, side-by-sides, and horseback. Today we brought an expert in on handling in the corral, getting cattle really calm and effective at working. Temple Grandin is the pioneer in this business. So she's going to help us today fine-tune the points that we worked on yesterday and our corral work.
To bring the cattle in, and then when we get them into the corrals, there's two different sets of ear tags. And we're going to separate the two different ear tag groups. And hopefully everything's going to go right. And that's what we're going to do.
All right, well, let's go do it.
Okay.
Now we've got to start putting our pressure on because we've got to overcome the pressure. Yeah, we've got to overcome the pressure of what we're taking them to. So now we're kind of funneling down with our corral though, or our pens or our gates, wings, and so now we can put a little more pressure on. Now right here, I'll show you something that I found to be very effective. When I got a spot like this, sometimes when I step off, I'll use my horse. They're not responding very well to my horse, but they'll respond to me on foot. And I can use my horse as a block. Well, we got the cattle in the corral, and they came in good and in a calm state of mind. Now we've transferred from horseback to a foot, and so we've got to think of those main things again: safety for the humans and the cattle. We have to keep the animals calm in a thinking, workable manner that doesn't increase their stress as they get closer to the chute or the truck or whatever.
Well, a real basic principle here, that's something a lot of people don't realize, is before you sort the cattle, is getting the cattle ready for sorting. That's a really, really important concept.
It's real important for an animal that they learn that when they go through a gate, they're not afraid to go through the gate. They go through the gate and they get freedom and the pressure comes away. This causes cattle to want to work for you. When you force cattle into places where they have to go into more pressure, then you have to fight with the cattle, so to say, to get them to do it. We're trying to change this around to where we teach the cattle how to work for us rather than against us.
In other words, when they go through the gate, it's a good thing. The pressure gets taken off.
Now, some things we need to think about are when we're working with these cattle, they're going to be worked on the left side of their body and the right side of their body. So they need to get used to seeing me from their right eye and their left eye. The other thing, when we're talking about balance point, if I have to get way down behind these cattle to get them to move, get way towards their tail, that puts me out of position to control their movement. So the first thing I'll try to teach these cattle is to walk away from me, nice and smooth. So I'll just get them to try to come out of this corner, and I'll line them up here, and I'll just keep working my way into this corner, and pretty soon I'll be far enough down it'll draw their eye to the right, and these cattle will they'll step off and they'll see that gate. Right now they're just bunched up in the corner, so I have to get down. I'm not behind them, I'm beside them because I want him to go out that gate to my right. There, now I'm in a position where I can actually send this heifer, and now I can step here and send another heifer, and I'll just try to get them where they understand where I'm at. Good. Now I can send my heifers. I can just step, now I'll step forward just a little ways and start controlling their flow. The farther I get forward, the more control I have of the way they go by me. And they're learning to walk by me on their right side. I'll just walk up with them. And they learn by going by me, they get to go to freedom. You'll see they feel kind of good getting by me. Every time you change corrals, put them in an alley, make sure you're thinking about these things. You're training the animals for the next step. You're not just simply taking them through a gate, you're training them for the next part of what you're going to do. And that'll really help you getting cattle ready for these things. Now see, now I can use this pen here. I can just take these cattle to each corner. So I'll ask them to step down to this corner here, so I'll step out this way. When I step to my right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send these cattle up, and then I'll draw out here, and it should get them where they turn and look at me. I can step right in and send them right down this fence line. I had to step back in to get their eyes looking at me so they knew where my pressure was coming from. Now I can step right in, send this bull up. Right here, I'm going to let them come right down this fence line. I'll step in behind them just a little bit more to draw their eye to me. Now I'll step right forward, send my leaders out straight. I'm going to point her nose right to that corner, step back and bring these forward. So when I go against these cattle's flow, they move forward. When I want to slow them down, I can just walk up their side. But right there, by my position here, they can learn to go into that corner. I'll step in, I'll send her, I'll get my movement, I'll step back, step in, and we'll send these guys this way. Now I'll ask them to turn and look at me with both eyes. Like this heifer here, I'll just ask her to look at me and I'll draw her to me by stepping back. Now I should be able to walk right in and send them right straight across. I'll send these cattle right straight across. Now I should be able to stop them by just stepping forward and getting them to look at me with two eyes. I'll kind of step forward and draw back, cause them to turn and look at me. Now I want to head them right towards that gate, so I should be able to step forward, step to them, send, come right across, send. I'm just going to turn everybody's head away from me, send them right on across. Now I'm behind the cattle, and I've got to create pressure enough to get through the gate, and this is a good place to learn. So right here, I'm just going to move back and forth. Back and forth, I'm going to send this side up, send this side over, send this side up. They should just move right on up. I'll be real careful not to get kicked. I'm getting pretty close to these cattle. And you can get in that kick zone. Now I'm in a spot where I can step right here, send these cattle right up through the gate. So my cattle are actually driving themselves through the gate. I'll step in. I'm working on their side. I'm not behind them, I'm working on their side. And this is real important to get these cattle where they want to flow through a gate. Always think about going through the cattle to the other side. Watch this one, this right here, she turned and looked at me. I should be able to get them to come out of that corner. I'll step right in here. Now the cattle also in this situation, they need to learn how to push out of a corner. So right here, I'll have this side send these cattle out. So as I step up here, they'll learn how to push their way out of a corner. And that's how you get cattle to flow out of a transition of a corner. Now right here, they want to go through the gate. I can step right forward here, and I'll ask them to step through the gate. But I want to keep working myself forward. Now, a lot of range cattle, they don't know how to stop. And if you're going to try to sort cattle outside or you've got to teach them how to stop as well. Most range cattle, when one goes, they all go. So the first thing you might want to start doing to get these cattle so they can slow down and stop, if they're range cattle. Now, a lot of cattle that are kept in a small confined area, you can't get them to go. And so you want to get a little more life in those cattle. Very good. And that's real nice how they like going out this way because that's where they came in. Now I'll go ahead and I'll take them up and put them in the alley.
Today, Kurt's going to demonstrate sorting in the alley. This is an area where many people get hurt. So it's really important. Learn how to handle cattle correctly. The first step is no yelling and screaming. Got to get rid of all the rough stuff. And if you bring the cattle in from pasture and they get a little bit excited, you need to let them settle down in the corrals for 20 or 30 minutes.
This is where the principles of stockmanship really apply. We're working in an alley. If the cattle can't take me, if their flight zone is real big, it gets real dangerous in the alley, and cattle start to panic themselves by jumping on top of each other and stepping on each other. Then they quit thinking and they start reacting. The other thing is, the alley can be the most stressful place on cattle there is because they cannot get away from the pressure of their other animals stepping on them or squeezing them, and they go into a panic mode real bad. The other thing I'd like to say is the width of the alley. This, I could work horseback. If I had a horse that I could handle properly, which my horse I've been riding, he would work just fine in this alley. It's a 14-foot alley. Cattle can feel real comfortable coming by a horse on 14 foot. Sometimes if you have cattle panicked and wild, you can't stop them in a 14-foot alley when you're on foot, and that's when it gets dangerous, or the cattle learn that they can get by you. So a lot of times if you're working on foot, a 12-foot alley is the best, but if you have a 14, your cattle have to be very calm. An 8 or a 10-foot alley, sometimes cattle don't want to come by you, and you have to get so deep in them to get them by you, then they start panicking and running by you. So these are just some things that you'll keep in mind as we are working with these cattle. This will be a nice demonstration of not having much movement. I got them up right here, so I'll have to do quite a bit here, and I'll go ahead and touch my bull. This is a place where I start getting my hands on these animals. I'll make sure their foot's heavy before I put my hand on them so they don't get kicked, but I don't have any movement going here, so I might use a little bit of noise to step my movement up. But that's all right. If it takes me quite a bit to get them to move up there, they won't be wild and crazy when I get them up there in the corner and they can think their way out of this deal. And this is about the only noise I will use is the, I call that the rattlesnake noise, and these cattle are in rattlesnake country, so they ought to be used to that. And I'll let these cattle, by touching them and turning my hip away from them, it kind of helps them to move up, and this actually prepares them for the chute once they get there. And I'll have to really, I'm gonna have to really step up my pressure by going back and forth here to get these guys to move up into the pressure here. And by putting my hand on these cattle, I'm preparing them for when they get in the chute, but I don't touch them unless I know they're not gonna kick me, or I'm pretty sure of it. So I'll send them on up, and of course, I'll have to really put a lot of pressure trying to get them to go right up against all the activity up in the front. So it should be easy to get them to come back by me. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my gate. And I like to sort cattle. I like to sort cattle by myself if I'm just sorting them two ways. So right here I can use those same concepts, and I'll go ahead and let some of them spill by me as I'm coming up, and I'll send these cattle right on up. Now I'm kind of close to my gate, but I'll just keep working here. Now I got to back up, back up. If I just stop straight, I'll let this heifer come, and I'm going to send her right on around me and send her on back. Drive her on back, step it in front of my bull. I'll step back, stop her, send her back up. Now I got a few that can flow on by me. Now I don't want to get too much movement too fast, so I just step back, hook these cattle on, stop them, step in, turn them back. The thing we have to really be aware of when we're sorting cattle in this way is the ability to step back and give them time to go. So right here, I'll walk backwards, stop her, turn her and send her across. Send her to the back. I'll draw, step forward to send them by, step back, stop her, put my hands up, stop her. Now I should be able to step forward, send her right back to the back, let this one come by me. I got another green tag coming, I'll stop her, turn her, walk her back, by. Now right here, a couple of moves with my feet should send this girl back. It didn't. I'll send these two right on across. Get here. Now if I get too far in, I'll get down behind my cattle and I'll have to panic them to stop them. I missed one cow already, I can see. I'll let the bull come on by. I'll step back. When I finish up, I want these cattle to be calm. I'd like her to look at me and have me on their mind when I finish things up. That's how I like to sort an alley. When you're done, these cattle are calm and it's easy for them to walk by me. I've taught them how to stop and look at me. Now I can say, I'd like you to go by me on my left side. I step here, step by her, good. I'll stop this heifer here, stop her with her front feet looking at me. I wait. I'm going to turn her back. I'm going to give her a little more room. I'm going to turn her back. As she comes around, I'm going to ask her to come forward. Now stop your feet, Look at me. This is real interesting right here, how we do this. I'll step in behind so she looks across this way. I'll ask her to look at me over here. Now I'll step. I'll ask her to stop. She's not responding to me, and this is a great spot for me to help this heifer to get where she can learn to respond to me. I'll push on her. I'll ask her to look at me with both eyes. I'll step forward. She's saying, no, I'm not going to do it, cowboy. Now I got to step back, change your mind, change your mind. Good. So this heifer is a heifer that'll run right over the top of you, and this is a good spot to take just a little bit of time to get her trained. I want her to be able to stop and wait. No different than I want my saddle horse to be able to stop and wait for me at a gate or whatever, right there. Now I'm going to kind of get a hold of her pretty good here. That's all right. This is good stuff here. Every animal needs to be worked with. Some need to be worked with more than others. Good. Now, I'll be real aware that she doesn't get pushing through me either. Good, now she's thinking. I'll ask her to step and look at me. Again, I'll draw that eye. She turns away when I ask her to look at me. Now right here, good. I'll ask her again. She's going to run over the top of me. I might not get her stopped this time, but I'll use my corner. This is real good. And I'll go ahead and whack her once. Now she's starting to think. Just wait, stop and wait. You get this heifer and she's going to calve next year, and you're trying to walk her in a chute to pull a calf or suckle a calf or do anything, this is valuable time spent. And with your replacement heifers, those are the ones that I really like to try to get working for me. And within 5, 6 years, maybe 8 years, you're going to probably have a herd of cattle that are pretty trainable, pretty workable. I kind of get a kick out of these kind of heifers. This is interesting work here. At some point, maybe right here, I'll say, just turn and look at me and stop. That's all I want her to do, is turn and look at me and stop right there, just like that. Perfect. That's what I've been trying to get this whole time. Now I can say, I want you to go by me on your right side. I'll ask her to look at me right here. Look over here. There, now you can walk on by. If we don't notice those things, it depends on what you want to do with your cow herd. If you want the best trained, the best working, the best animals that go into the chain from your ranch that are ready to work at an auction market, a feedlot facility, or whatever, we've got to get our animals ready to work before we leave our place to go to the next spot.
There are many different types of ranches and cattle operations throughout the U.S. In the western United States, people are going to be using more herding methods of handling cattle out on very, very large range and pasture. Back east, on smaller operations, people are probably going to be leading cattle. Both methods work really well.
It really doesn't matter the style you use as long as the outcome or what you're doing is what we're trying to achieve. The thing that a lot of us miss is we get our cattle handled in our own style for our own situation, but we've got to remember that these cattle are probably going somewhere else. And somebody might not have the same skills, they might not have the same facilities, or the same amount of labor that we would have where you are. Cattle handling is a skill, and a skill is learned through thinking, practicing, and always trying to improve yourself.
Well, that's absolutely right, and we handle cattle right out on the ranch. They're going to be so much easier and safer for people to handle on each step down the supply chain.